The rain drummed against the stained-glass windows of St. Augustine's Cathedral as I slipped into the back pew, my black dress still damp from the downpour outside. Heads turned, some with surprise, others with barely concealed disdain. I hadn't set foot in this church, or this town, in 7 years. "You don't belong here," my sister Veronica hissed, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my arm as she materialized beside me like an avenging angel in Chanel. "You've been cut off for years, Diana. Have you no shame?" I gently removed her hand, meeting her ice-blue eyes with my own. "They were my parents too, Veronica." "Were they?" She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the cathedral walls. "You abandoned them. Abandoned all of us for your precious art career in New York. And for what? To paint meaningless canvases that nobody wants to buy." I said nothing. There was no point. Veronica had rehearsed this speech in her mind for years, perfecting each barb, sharpening each accusation. The prodigal daughter returning home. Except in her version of the story, there would be no fatted calf, no celebration. The service began, and I tried to focus on the priest's words, but my mind kept drifting to the last time I'd seen my parents alive. That terrible Christmas 7 years ago, when everything fell apart. When I'd announced I was leaving medical school to pursue art. When my father had thrown his whiskey glass against the wall and told me I was no longer his daughter. After the service, we made our way to Evergreen Cemetery. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and roses. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching as they lowered my parents' caskets into the ground, victims of a car accident on the very road where they'd first met 45 years ago. "Diana?" I turned to find Marcus Webb, my father's lawyer and oldest friend, his kind face creased with concern. "Marcus." I managed a small smile. "Thank you for letting me know about the accident." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "Of course, my dear. Despite everything, I knew you'd want to know." He paused, studying my face. "The will reading is tomorrow at my office. 10 o'clock sharp." "I don't think I'll be attending," I said quietly. "I know they cut me off. I'm not here for money, Marcus. I just wanted to say goodbye." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Concern? "Diana, I really think you should be there." Before I could respond, Veronica appeared, her husband Preston at her side like a well-trained guard dog. "Mr. Webb, I trust you won't be entertaining any delusions my sister might have about contesting the will." Mother and father were quite clear about their wishes. Marcus's expression hardened slightly. "I'm well aware of your parents' wishes, Veronica. As I was telling Diana, the reading is tomorrow at 10. "She won't be there," Veronica said flatly. "Will you, Diana?" I looked between them, Marcus with his insistent gaze, Veronica with her triumphant smirk. "I'll think about it," I said finally. That night, I stayed at the Riverside Inn, the only place in town where I could be relatively anonymous. I lay in bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling, remembering the art classes my mother had secretly paid for when I was young. The way my father's eyes had lit up when I'd gotten into Johns Hopkins. The crushing weight of their expectations. The freedom and terror of walking away from it all. The next morning, I found myself standing outside Marcus's office at 9:55 a.m. I'd told myself I was just going for a walk, but my feet had other ideas. Veronica's Mercedes was already parked outside, along with several other cars I recognized, aunts, uncles, cousins who'd all chosen her side in the family schism. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Veronica sat at the head of the table, Preston beside her, surrounded by other relatives who murmured their disapproval at my appearance. I took a seat near the door, ready to leave the moment Veronica got what she'd always wanted, everything. Marcus entered, carrying a thick manila envelope. He looked tired, older than his 70 years. "Thank you all for coming," he began, settling his reading glasses on his nose. "Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that what I'm about to read represents Victor and Margaret Ashford's final wishes, executed with sound mind and body 6 months ago." 6 months ago? Veronica frowned. "They updated their will?" "But I thought—" "If I may continue," Marcus said gently but firmly. He opened the envelope and began to read. "We, Victor and Margaret Ashford, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be our last will and testament, revoking all previous wills and codicils." The legal language droned on, but I found myself studying my sister's face. She looked confident, assured. Why wouldn't she? She'd been the perfect daughter. Married the right man, joined the right clubs, produced 2 perfect grandchildren who called my parents every Sunday without fail. To our daughter, Veronica Preston, we leave the sum of $1 million, our vacation home in Martha's Vineyard, and our sincere hope that she will finally find her own path in life, rather than the one she believed we wanted her to follow. The room went silent. Veronica's face had gone pale. 1 million? But the estate is worth. The remainder of our estate, Marcus continued, his voice steady, including all properties, investments, and personal belongings, valued at approximately $50 million, we leave to our daughter, Diana Ashford. My sister's knees buckled. Preston caught her, easing her back into her chair. The room erupted in shocked voices, but I couldn't hear them. I felt like I was underwater, sounds muffled and distorted. No, Veronica gasped. No, there's been a mistake. Check again, Mr. Webb. They cut her off. They told me, they promised me. Marcus removed his glasses, cleaning them slowly. There's more, he said quietly. They left a letter. For both of you. He handed us each a sealed envelope. My hands shook as I opened mine, recognizing my mother's careful script. Our dearest Diana, by the time you read this, we'll be gone, and you'll probably be wondering why. Why we're leaving you everything when we pushed you away. The truth is, my darling girl, you were the only one brave enough to be yourself. We were wrong. So terribly, terribly wrong. We spent years trying to force you into a mold, never realizing that your spirit, your passion, your refusal to be anything but yourself, that was what we should have celebrated. We followed your career, you know. Every gallery showing, every review, every small success. Your mother has a storage unit filled with your paintings that we bought through intermediaries. You probably wondered who was buying them. It was us. Always us. Too proud and too ashamed to reach out, but unable to let go. Veronica chose the life she thought we wanted for her. She gave up her dreams of being a teacher to marry Preston because he had the right pedigree. She had children when she wasn't ready because we kept asking for grandchildren. She became a mirror of what she thought we wanted to see, and in doing so, lost herself. We failed both of you, but you found a way to thrive despite our failures. The money is our apology, inadequate as it is. But more than that, it's our hope that you'll use it to continue being exactly who you are, an artist who sees the world in ways we never could. We love you. We've always loved you. We were just too foolish to show it the right way. All our love. Mom and Dad. Tears blurred my vision. I looked up to find Veronica staring at her own letter, tears streaming down her face. They knew, she whispered. They knew I hated the country club. They knew I never wanted. She looked at Preston with something like horror. They knew everything. The room had fallen silent, everyone watching us with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Marcus cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Your parents set up an education trust, specifically for you, Veronica. They've enrolled you in the teaching program at the state university. They wanted you to know it's never too late to follow your dreams. Veronica laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. Follow my dreams? I'm 38 years old. I have 2 children. A husband. A life you never wanted, I said softly. She turned on me, eyes blazing. Don't you dare. Don't you dare pretend to understand. You left. You got to leave. And you got to stay, I replied. We both made our choices, Veronica. We both paid for them. She stood abruptly, Preston scrambling to follow. I'll contest this. You'll lose, Marcus said firmly. Your parents were very thorough. They had psychological evaluations, witnesses, everything needed to ensure this will stand. Veronica looked around the room wildly, seeking support from the relatives who'd always taken her side. But they avoided her gaze, already recalculating their allegiances. In the end, she fled, Preston trailing behind her. One by one, the others left, murmuring excuses. Soon, it was just Marcus and me in the conference room. I know this is a shock, he said gently. Your parents, they regretted what happened between you. Your mother especially. She used to come to my office and cry, wondering if they'd pushed too hard, loved too conditionally. Why didn't they reach out? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 7 years, Marcus. They had 7 years. Pride, he said simply. Shame. Fear that you'd reject them the way they rejected you. They kept planning to call, to write, to show up at one of your exhibitions. But days turned to months, months to years, and the distance felt insurmountable. I thought about all those anonymous sales, keeping me afloat when I was struggling. My parents, loving me from afar, too broken to bridge the gap they'd created. What am I supposed to do with $50 million? I asked. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him all day. Whatever you want, my dear. That's rather the point. The next few days passed in a blur. I had to stay in town to handle the estate paperwork, which meant inevitable encounters with Veronica. I found her one evening at our parents' house, sitting in our mother's studio, a room I hadn't even known existed. She painted. Veronica said without looking at me. Did you know that? All these years, she had this room, and she painted. I looked around at the canvases lining the walls, landscapes, portraits, still lives. They were amateur but full of passion, full of life. I didn't know, I admitted. She gave it up when she married Dad. Said there wasn't time for hobbies when you had a family to raise. Veronica laughed bitterly. And I did the same thing. Gave up teaching to marry Preston. Like mother, like daughter. I sat beside her on the paint-stained floor. It's not too late, you know. The teaching program. I know. She was quiet for a moment. I hated you for so long. Not because you left, but because you had the courage to leave. Because you looked at the life they'd planned for you and said no. I could never do that. You were trying to be a good daughter, I said. And you were trying to be yourself. Guess we know which one they actually wanted. We sat in silence, surrounded by our mother's secret paintings, two sisters divided by choices made long ago. I'm going to divorce Preston, she said suddenly. He's been having affairs for years. I knew, but I stayed because good wives stay. Good wives don't become teachers. Good wives don't rock the boat. Veronica, I'm not asking for your money, she said quickly. The $1 million is more than enough to start over. I wanted you to know. I'm 38 years old, and I'm finally going to try to be myself. Whatever that means. I took her hand. When was the last time we'd touched with anything but anger? I'll be here, I said. If you need me, I'll be here. She squeezed my hand, and for a moment, I saw the sister I'd once had, before expectations and resentments built walls between us. The will reading had shattered more than just Veronica's expectations. It had shattered the family narrative we'd all believed, that I was the selfish daughter who'd abandoned her family, that Veronica was the good daughter who'd sacrificed everything for them. The truth was more complex, more painful, more human. Our parents had seen us both clearly in the end, Veronica, trapped in a life built to please them. Me, free but alone, creating art in a city that didn't know my story. They'd tried to fix what they'd broken the only way they knew how, with money and truth delivered from beyond the grave. Standing in that studio, holding my sister's hand, I realized that maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe their final gift wasn't just money or apologies, but a chance for Veronica and me to find each other again, to be sisters without the weight of their expectations. The sun was setting, painting the studio walls golden. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out what to do with $50 million and a heart full of complicated grief. But tonight, I sat with my sister among our mother's paintings, and we talked about who we used to be, who we were, and who we might become. The inheritance had come with strings after all, not obligations or conditions, but the gossamer threads of connection, pulling us back together after years of separation. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth more than all the money in the world.